I'm the Doshi Professor of Indic and Comparative Theology. And I'm actually following through on these arguments with a continuous thread. And part of the joy of Indian thought is that there are so many different ways of literally counting. And what Purushottam was presenting here was really quite foundational and essential. Is there a one? Is there a many? What is the relationship between the two? And what I would like to do for openers is to point us back into this seminal verse from the Rig Veda, from the Mandukya Upanishad, and from the Svetashvatara Upanishad that talks about two and one. And rather than saying that there's either a oneness or a two-ness, this core metaphor, this core image, suggests that in our conceptualization we must always move out of and return to a place of complexity and a place of relationality. Now, many philosophers find difficulty grappling with this premise of accounting, this premise of Sankhya. Followers of Advaita Vedanta lament the absence of imagery in Sankhya that collapses the binary between Purusha and Prakriti. In Sankhya, the world, the manifest world, does not merge into a universal awareness. Sankhya never uses the term Brahman. Followers of Dvaita Vedanta lament the absence of a transcendent divine in Sankhya. Sankhya never names or mentions a creating or controlling Lord. Buddhists remain troubled by Sankhya because it invokes the existence of a complex self, a personality characterized by activity in the world that seeks freedom and seemingly endures as consciousness. Others remain troubled by the logical difficulty and complexity of Sankhya. Idealists question its affirmation of the material. Pragmatists question the argument that freedom is possible through knowledge, jnana, located in the bridge between consciousness and the world. Furthermore, modern interpreters have raised feminist objections to Sankhya. According to their point of view, the entire system privileges the male, namely consciousness as Purusha, as the male, to be the true goal, which by implication indicts activity or prakriti as the source of all woe. For them, the underlying pretext of Sankhya, by its very usage of gendered language, denigrates women. Now, what I want to do is move forward into taking a closer look. Does Sankhya actually denigrate Prakriti? And what I'll hazard here is certainly not. I'm going to back up a little bit in my written version here to Mula Prakriti. And right in the third karika of the Sankhya karika of Ishvara Krishna, maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th century, we don't really know the date, but it says that Mula Prakriti is not derivative. Mula Prakriti does not come from a transcendent place. It is not a division of Brahman. The word Brahman is not used. But it goes on to describe the operative of Mula Prakriti. It says that 7 aspects derive from Prakriti, starting with the Mahat, the Buddhi. Ahamkara, and then earth, water, fire, air, and space. And then 16 objects, or rather 16 aspects, further emerge: the mind, the sense organs, 5 in number, the action organs, 5 in number, and the subtle elements, 5 in number. We need all of these for experience. But then the verse goes on to say that the Purusha is neither Prakriti nor a derivative of Prakriti. But I want from the onset to say that no denigrating evaluation is made of Prakriti, merely a description of her complexity. Furthermore, and this always reminds me of Thomas Aquinas, proving the existence of God, and what Ishvara Krishna does is use very similar arguments, not to prove the existence of a singular God, but rather to prove the efficacy of these twin principles of Purusha and Prakriti. Stating, due to her subtlety, she cannot be apprehended. Okay? We cannot detect a Prakriti in our midst other than in our effects. This does not mean that she does not exist. She is apprehended through her effects. These effects, again, begin with the Mahat, this great principle called Buddhi, and they are similar, the effects are similar and different to Prakriti. So again, they're both derivative and essential in a certain sense. And then further proofs are given that she exists, that there is a Sat. Okay, going back again to the conversation, is there Asat, is there Sat? And here, clearly, it's Sat Karyavana. No action arises from non-existence. Anything that can be grasped arises from perception. There is no existence that arises from all things. The efficacy of an action arises from its power, which is real. Existence arises from a material cause. Hence, each occurrence is real, each karana, each moment. And then it goes on to describe this manifest world as having 9 aspects. 1, it is caused. Caused by what? Prakriti. 2, it is finite. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end to the particularities of that which comes out of Prakriti. 3, it's non-pervasive. There is one speaker here. It is a speaker. It is Prakriti, and it's not everywhere. 4, active. The world consists of activity. 5, multiple. There are many things within the world. It is supported, that in order for there to be a speaker, there had to be an ordering of the speaker for it to be here. 7, marked. Things have personalities. Things have distinctions. 8, composed of parts. And 9, dependent on another. The unmanifest, which is the other aspect, we were talking about Saguna and Nirguna, somewhat parallel to this, is that the unmanifest is things before they are caused to come out, things before they reach their particularity. We can go through all 9 points, but no time. And then, an object is discerned due to the 3 gunas. And the more I think of Professor Rukmini, the more I admire her bravery. We all need to pay more attention to the 3 gunas. And whole topic for lifetimes of work. But if we look at the true message of the Bhagavad Gita, the bulk of the text is given over to educating people to understand the 3 gunas. So a little bit. An object is discerned due to the 3 gunas. It is held in common and not conscious. It proceeds according to its constitution, according to its dharma. That is an object, anything. The manifest is therefore linked to the pradana, the Prakriti, before she moves outward into the dance of her manifestation. The Puman, another word for Purusha, stands apart from it. In regard to the gunas, their nature is delight, disgust, and despair. Their purpose is luminosity, activity, and restraint. Their fluctuations combine so that one overpowers the others, one predominates while the others support. Sattva is light and luminous, Rajas stimulates and moves, Tamas is heavy and concealing. A fluctuation within the gunas is like a lamp. Its purpose is to make a thing apparent. The humble jumble of non-discernment arises from the 3 gunas, The absence of that results in the contrary, that is, the puman. The humble jumble stops, then you can observe. The material cause is to be found in the essential nature of the gunas. The unmanifest is thus established in the effect. Now I'm seeing that our screen is a little bit further on, so I do want to keep moving here. But what I'm trying to lay down is an argument that Sankhya is not to be underestimated, not to be dismissed. Virtually every system agrees that we have to talk about those aspects of human reality, the elements, the senses, and utmost the bhavas. The pradhana, this potential of experience moving forth, provides the twin experiences of experience and freedom, twin purposes rather, of experience and freedom for the Purusha, like a blind person teams up with a lame person. Creation occurs due to samyoga. When this awareness comes near the dancer, we then have the gift of the world. From Prakriti come the Mahat, and then the Ahamkara, then the group of 16 that we had before, and then from the midst of the 16, one of the group of the Tanmatras, specifically the rudiments or the Tanmatras, produces the 5 elements. And the whole thing comes forth. Ultimately, in Sankhya, this purpose of experience becomes known. And this arises as one goes into a state of abeyance, of being truly a witness. And in that moment, it is seen that no one is bound, no one is released, no one even moves in samsara. Only Prakriti, in her various forms, moves in samsara, is bound and released. And here, no one is bound, no one is released. It is only Prakriti in her various costumes that transmigrates, is bound, and is free. I love translating, it just keeps going.
When you get it beautiful, like come presents, I can using the getting new terminology.
Yeah, we spent a year on the Sankhyakarika,
and he's freed rather than free.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Not free while it's bounded, though. I mean,
well, I don't know. I really don't know. Okay? I think it's sort of amazing, going back to Chamatkara. I love that sense of amazement that actually does come out with the text. Okay, so moving forward 600 or 700 or 800 years, and Chamatkara, that sense of amazement, we find again and again expressed poetically in the Yogavāsiṣṭha. And in the Yogavāsiṣṭha, the narrative that we see articulating where Lorelei was going yesterday about agency, and the word for it in the Yogavāsiṣṭha is parusha, that there is this aspect of the human in the world that gives us the agency in the will and the intentionality that allows us to simultaneously be authors of our reality, again, using direct quotes from Vijnanavada Buddhism and Chittamatra philosophy, as well as encouraging an ongoing relationship with processes of purification through sadachara, taking up good company, and abiding by sashastra, following what's suggested in the shastras for the better life. So Sankhya, in its texture and as even a textile, finds its expression in this remarkable work which culminates with Vasishtha's cave. Okay? And I'm going to tell a little story about a place that many of you have visited. You can hire a driver to take you up from Rishikesh and go to Vasishtha's cave. Have any of you been there?
In Rishikesh?
Above Rishikesh. Okay?
Past
So your next visit, above Rishikesh. Hire the driver, go up there, and go into Vasishtha's cave. I was there appropriately with my daughter a few years back.
Dr. Ganesh Bufania.
Okay, another place. So Vasishtha enters this cave, and you can go there, and you have to sort of feel your way back, and then you let your eyes adjust, and there's a woman that maintains a depot lamp there. There's a little image of Shiva. And Vasishtha goes in, the great sage who was the preceptor for Ram, and he lets his eyes adjust, and he's sitting there, and Shiva's sitting there, and Shiva's sitting there, and Shiva's sitting there, and it gets really boring. And he's just sitting there. Then a glimmer, a ray of light comes, and all of a sudden, Prakriti enters. Prakriti, at first, stands still, like Shiva sits still, and then she begins to dance. And as we read, as she dances, the whole world comes into existence. And what Vasishtha sees in the cave is that any being, following its desires, becomes the living soul. And this would pertain, in the Jain sense, even to a clod of earth itself, okay, new materialism. Okay? It collects itself into the parts of its body. With the pulsing heart at its center, it creates the I from the eye maker, the Ahamkara. And then through naming things, the mind itself emerges. Its understanding forms the intellect. It perceives sense objects through the sense organs, the indriyas. And the embodied one thus takes on a body, just as a potter creates a pot. This arises from self-inclination. It is known that a person has 8 aspects: the 5 organs of sense, thoughts, feelings, and the witness. And Vasishtha sort of does an aside and says, people get mistaken and due to mithya jnana think, I am the form, I am the body, whether standing or moving. And this mistaken notion forgets one's origins in consciousness with that spark. Traps a person in the world, resulting in a cycle of birth and death. Now moving to these verses, as she stood there, and as she began her dance, she began to take all the different forms, like we see in the Trishati. And the Yogavāsiṣṭha gives its own mini Trishati and says, she's called by the names Jaya and Siddha, because she is accompanied by victory and prosperity at all times. So it's in the qualities that she is known. She is also designated as a Parijita, or the invincible. Virya, the mighty. Durga, the inaccessible. And is likewise known as Uma, composed of the powers of the three syllables Om. She is called Gayatri from being chanted by everybody, and Savitri from being the matrix of all things. She is named Sarasvati for giving us insight into what appears before our sight. Yogavāsiṣṭha, it's so exquisite. She is the form of the beautiful sky of space, Akash itself. She is seen as the good fortune, Shri, moving all that she holds, Spanda Dharmani. She is the goddess, Devi, of all these various things that she dances into being. All cities and continents, mountains and islands, hang on her agency as a string of gems around her neck. She holds together all parts of the world and exerts her force's vibration in them all. She is the one great body of the cosmos. Her power supports the earth with all its seas and islands, and its forests and deserts and mountains. And then finally, dancing with her outstretched arms, which look like a forest of tall pines, she contains the world in the vibration of her mind. Go girl.
So the pine forest.
Yeah, and it was so amazing because I had translated this so many years prior to that particular visit where I went to the cave, and there's this one image of the tree-tangled mountain, and you come out of the cave and then you look back up and you see these just crazy trees, and it's not a metaphor, it's a direct description. And as we were in the cave, my daughter and I, there was a woman that came in to tidy us up, to sort of rearrange where we had splayed our bodies, and to just very matter-of-factly sort of say, hey, I'm boss here. And it was beautiful in so many ways. And then Vasishtha, and this is the subject of another project that I have coming out, Vasishtha goes on to describe in chapter after chapter after chapter about how he came to the state of sagehood. And it was explicitly through that process of pratipasava, by going out and reflecting, doing prithvidharana, doing jal dharana, doing agni dharana, doing vayu dharana, and then it becomes a little bit unclear when he does the akash dharana. But that's his sadhana. That's his pathway of return. That's his pathway to self-understanding, which is not an abstraction, but it's an understanding of how and why property performs. And where does it all happen? It happens within the human body. Now, fast forwarding to a recent sort of field discovery, which is sort of funny because it's been there for a very, very long time. Does anybody remember this couple? Recognize this couple? Okay, well, Sri Ram Mishra was a colleague and confidant of Mahatma Gandhi, and whereas Gandhi went the very ascetic route and said, we have to give up all those rituals, all we need to do is chant the Gita, and you need to spin every day, and you have to, well, just like Gandhi had his prolific output, Sri Ram was living in Vrindavan and started publishing a newsletter. And it became disseminated widely throughout India. And he, at first, and reading his biography is, to me, even better than reading the autobiography of a yogi, but without giving too many specifics, he said, well, I was up meditating all the time, and all of a sudden, these people from the Himalayas kept on guiding me, so I did my expedition up there, and they kept on guiding me, and I came back from the Himalayas, and they kept on guiding me. And this newsletter became widely distributed. And he took as his practice, his mission in the world, bringing the Gayatri mantra forward. This is their grandson, who currently heads up in many ways. His mother is still alive, their daughter, as well as his father. But as you can see, he's a much younger man than myself, or many of us in the room. And he is now the head of a 9,000 student university in Haridwar, and part of the managing board for 100 million followers movement called the Gayatri Haridwar. And what their sadhana consists of is recitation of Gayatri. And the Gayatri mantra is their core sadhana. And every morning at 5 a.m., they assemble both here, there's a Gayatri Haridwar in Anaheim, and worldwide, some of you, of course, have already been there. And what they do is that they take that Vedic yajna of the havan, and they light, they chant, they feed the fire, they feed objects into the fire, and they completely democratize this so that everyone participates fully and equally. They have a song leader, and their university is open to all, and it's amply supported. And it also retains a little bit of the Gandhian fervor for working. So every student at the university does seva and spends at least 6 months serving the needs of the university. They make paper there, they make textiles, they do all manner of handicraft, and it's really quite remarkable. And what I found particularly interesting for the topic of the Sri Vidya conference was that their only image is this image of Gayatri. They have one, it's sort of not even a full statue, but a bas-relief, and it's the focal point, along with the Mahasamadhis for the founders, Sri Ram Mishra and his wife. And in addition to honoring 7 sages, they lift up, in particular, 7 women. And these women are, as you can see, some of them real and historical. The men sages are Vishvamitra, who is associated with Gayatri, Yogavāsiṣṭha, who I just talked about, Yajnavalkya, Vyasya, Parashurama, and Narada. So those are sort of classic. It's their own version of 7 seers, but those are guys that we know are mythological and legendary. But when it comes to the women, we get Sita, Draupadi, Gargi, Mirabai, Lakshmibai, Nivedita, Kasturbai, Gandhi's wife, and Sarojini Naidu. So from the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the Upanishads, the Mughal period, the period of resistance against the British in the 19th century, an Irish woman ends up in the lineup, Gandhi's wife, and continued resistance into the 20th century with Sarojini Naidu. And it's very interesting because in his writings, you can tell, like Aurobindo, he was very much a man of his times. He notes the importance of Shankaracharya. He notes the importance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He notes the importance of Ganeshwara and Tulsidas, as well as Marx, Rousseau, Harriet Beecher Stowe, Gandhi, Patel, the freedom fighter, Nehru, Martin Luther King Jr., Aurobindo himself, Sri Ramakrishna, and Ramana Maharshi. So what
Vivekananda?
No, not on the list.
When Ramakrishna is there, he is included.
He's included. They're all implicit. But,
In tradition.
but what I wanted to do in sharing this was to say that the goddess continues to make and take many forms. So, thank you.
It's just a comment, just like I'm reading Shankara, I'm tempted to do something new, or at least the way I think. For Sankhya, I'm interested to read Sankhya, may not be new, at least for me it's kind of new, from the light of Vikriti. Mula prakriti avikriti mahadabhya prakriti vikrita sapta shodashakastu vikaro na prakriti na vikriti purusha. This is like Mahavakya for Aristotle.
Yeah.
So then the second line I would like is, what is prakriti? Gunatraya samya avastha prakriti. So prakriti is nothing but an absolute harmony of three gunas. And there is no guna without guni.
Right.
Gunas are qualities, properties that need to belong to somebody.
Right.
So if I can read Sankhya within this prism, then Purusha's liberation, I'm going to Purusha's liberation, is only to regain the Prakriti status of the Samya, the harmony. Because what happens in creation, and will match with Ayurveda, is we get into vikara. And Prakriti is never a problem, because you cannot get rid of. Prakriti means your original nature. There is no getting rid of your original nature. But what happens, we get into Vikriti. And then we have to get out of that Vikriti. So there is never a Purusha that is deprived of Gunatraya, because that is its Prakriti. Because Prakriti is what it originally is. And so for me then, the liberation in this reading would be, we got into mixed up with a vikara, like a disease, and we get recovered from this disease, which would be going to our Prakriti, or in a healthy status of Purusha, where there is a samya, a harmony of the gunas, not like you get out of the gunas.
Right. Okay, Maureen, you have to come on.
This is all.
All right. So this is all he's saying. Okay, we're just illustrating.
Don't fight. That's all I'm saying. Don't fight. If you guys are fighting, and you need to get to your true loving nature. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, Jeff, please.
Yeah.
I love it.
So Chris, we've had some conversations recently about Sankhya, and I don't disagree with what Stanishwar says, but I read Sankhya metaphysics slightly differently, and I think you have to start from the metaphysics, because this frames how they understand liberation and the whole pursuit of liberation and the meaning of Yakta Prakriti. Would you mind going back to your first slide? Yeah, one more. So I know we're going to spend time in a few weeks talking about this in more detail, but I believe that at Kartika 21, the last section here, creation occurs due to compresence, samyoga. I think Jerry Larson makes a similar, I'm going to say it's a mistake, a translation mistake. I don't think we have an ablative here. I think you actually have two nominatives that are in apposition with each other. You have creation in the nominative, and you have some yogaha, not some yogat. And I think this is significant because creation does not occur from some yoga or from something else that's causally and temporally prior. I think creation occurs as compresence. And so this is significant, I think, because in relation to another thing that I've been kind of trying to make sense of. I think it's important to distinguish between Mula Prakriti and Vyakta Prakriti. And that Vyakta Prakriti manifests not from something, but as something. And what it manifests as is the compresence, the coming together of Purusha and Mula Prakriti. It doesn't manifest as Mula Prakriti. It manifests from the compresence of the two. And so it's really, what it manifests is the coming together of genders, of gender binaries. And so it carries both the masculine and the feminine. It's not strictly feminine, even though it's in the feminine gender. And I think this is very significant, particularly for the question that you kind of framed your paper with. Is this true that Samkhya denigrates the feminine or the female? First of all, I don't think it does. It celebrates Vyakta Prakriti, and liberation happens as one enjoys Vyakta Prakriti. So as one celebrates the feminine, but you're not just celebrating the feminine, you're celebrating the feminine coming together, the genesis of the feminine and the masculine together. And one last thing I'll make is that the first manifestation is Mahat. So Mula, of course, never manifests. Mahat is what manifests. And this Mahat carries this creative intentionality. It carries the play of being bound and then being released, but there's no intentionality in Mula Prakriti. Mula Prakriti is blind.
Right, right. Beautiful. I agree completely with everything you say, and I take all the corrections. Bravo. And what isn't really included in this talk, but certainly will be in a couple of weeks, looks at, Mikhail Burley's neglect of the Bhavas, and looks at the sheer volume of attention given to the Bhavas, both the Eightfold Bhavas and the 50-fold Bhavas, where the Mahat is critical to it all. And this is the intersection point with Vijnanavada Buddhism, with Chittamatra, that this is the alaya, this is the storehouse of all of the conditioning that then rolls forth as desire makes itself manifest. And I really look forward to a couple of weeks from now. I invite you all to come back.
See, there is a term in Sankhya philosophy, Prakriti Purusha Viyogo Moksha. Prakriti, separation of Purusha and Prakriti is the liberation. Now, who you explain this one?
It's very interesting because it's not a logically consistent text. It says that it's only Prakriti that gets bound or free, and then it talks about the freedom of Purusha. They're both in there, and therefore what I've done is, as the text does, go to the metaphor, and the reason I told the story from the Yogavāsiṣṭha was to replicate that moment where Prakriti dancing ceases her dance, but in that story it's inverted. It's that the chamatkara is that amazement at the dance that actually causes people to sit up and pay attention, and then the whole world is inseparable from the chit, from the awareness, from the consciousness. So thank you for pointing out the logical inconsistencies. They're there. Okay, I want now to introduce someone. It's you, Anya, who and just give a little bit of a flow that will have Anya for, again, we've all taken about 4 minutes. And what will be preferable. Do you have images too?
Amazement.
Yes. Okay. So, Alex, if you could help Anya with her images, that would be great. And then Devashish Banerjee is not able to be with us, but however, he did send this provocative PowerPoint. And what I will propose to do is take that last 15 or 20 minutes to share what he sent, and I will actually give you a physical copy of it because you want to have it with you. You want to relish its presence and its insight. And I have a color version that we will see on the PowerPoint. I also brought PowerPoint for what I just shared with you if you would like a copy. I wasn't sure this was going to work because all the machines were gone, but they are here, but we do have copies. And then following, we'll wrap up by around 12:30. Then some people will be going for lunch. We'll probably go to lunch, right local again. And then people will also be traveling out to the Venkateshwara temple. The Shankaracharya of Kanchipuram has passed away. And there's a special ceremony in his honor from 3 to 5 p.m. And Shastriji will be part of that experience, as will Narayan Swami, whose name I messed up last night, I apologize, but I finally got it right, Narayan Swami. And he is at the organizational team for that. So Anya, are you ready?
I am, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.